Thank you very much, Alex, and happy to be here again. I remember the very good Littoral conference in Venice a few years ago, which led to important results. The stakeholder forum for the integrated maritime policy was born there, the cross-cutting stakeholder forum in which we encourage stakeholders of maritime affairs in the broadest sense, thus coastal affairs, but also interests in maritime sectors, to talk to each other across boundaries. And with this memory in mind, I happily accepted to come back and say a few words at the beginning of this important conference. Again, I have to say the agenda is very timely because in the integrated maritime policy of the European Union, social matters and the understanding of the social fabric, issues like social inclusion in coastal areas are a white spot. We have focused on growth and jobs. We have focused on risks such as the risks of crime and security, thus a project of integrated surveillance of the sea. We are focusing, of course, on environmental concerns, thus integrated coastal zone management guidelines and the protocol to the Barcelona Convention, and so on. But although in the European Union we have, of course, a social policy, this issue of social inclusion, the understanding of the social fabric, the specific social issues in coastal communities has not been subject of intense work. Basically, we have faced difficulties, for example, to understand from a statistical point of view, to isolate the specifics in coastal regions. The statistical system of the European Union is not adapted in such a way that we get reliable statistics on these types of issues from the coastal regions and through our member states. So the issue is timely, and we very much look forward to the result of this conference, but also continued work afterwards. Of course, what we are looking for, the model of development, is sustainable development, and sustainable development is not only sustainable in environmental terms. It's not only a development which creates growth and jobs, because work and income is an important part of sustainability, but in sustainability we also integrate, obviously, in social inclusion aspects. So from that point of view, this interdisciplinary approach, which is at the heart of the integrated maritime policy, as the word integrated already says, it's a cross-sectoral policy in which we try to bring together all the policies into coherent framework, all the policies which are relevant for coastal regions, but also maritime sectors, must be matched. This integrated approach, I believe, must be matched on the one hand by a readiness of stakeholders to talk across the usual boundaries which divide them, to come together and to be able to discuss not only within their own groupings the issues of special interest, but to exchange across sectors and across interests. And of course it must be matched by a certain readiness in science to work in a multidisciplinary manner. Policy making for the seas and for the coasts is very often a mixture, or requires a mixture of understanding of natural sciences and social sciences, and therefore for us it is vital that on such key aspects also scientists work together. Now, that doesn't mean that all the research and all the work of scientists has to be interdisciplinary. In the end, of course, science is free and every scientist has to decide for himself or herself what they want to research. But when it comes to asking the question, what is relevant for policymaking? And by all means, not every research has to be relevant for policymaking. There are other aims of research, such as understanding nature, understanding the world, which are very important, and not every research has to be relevant for policymaking. But if the aim is to be relevant for policymaking, then very often this interdisciplinary link between natural science and social science becomes important, and it is of particular importance, of course, when we think of the coasts and the seas. So what we're looking for in the end, if you think of the long term, is a coherent policy, in the ideal case, which we will never reach, a coherence of policies for coasts, coastal regions, and maritime sectors, where the coherence starts at the watershed on land and continues to the outer edge of the continental shelf, and probably as far as maritime sectors are concerned, thus as far as the economic actors of Europe are concerned, even beyond that. Our integrated maritime policy is not a policy which only applies to areas under jurisdiction of member states of the European Union, but we regulate the behavior of economic actors also beyond our borders. The challenges, you all know them, are the risks and opportunities of the sea. They are manifold. They are increasing. The risks due to climate change, I don't need to explain to you. The Commission has committed to come up with a communication on the coastal impacts of climate change. It has committed to this in the white paper on adaptation to coastal climate change. And I think we will come out with something on this in the year 2012 or 2013. There are other risks in the coastal regions. The risk, for example, of social deprivation, unemployment, the risks relating to security and safety, for example. At the same time, we see a global trend of increasing appropriation of the sea because the opportunities are there. The sea is becoming more and more a space of economic activity. The pressure of use is starting, and the challenge here is not only an environmental challenge and a challenge of sustainability, it's also a challenge to optimize the economic use of the sea. If we make use of the sea in a sustainable manner, we want to get the most of it under environmentally sustainable conditions. So when we talk about adaptation to global change, this is not only an environmental subject, but this is really a subject which touches on all policy objectives of the European Union. And therefore, I'm very happy to see that also in the program, the different economic, social, and natural science aspects are reflected. So thank you very much for this effort. I hope it will have sustainability in terms of the research, in terms of the documentation, and it will inspire further work. We are certainly listening very closely. The integrated maritime policy is a young policy. All over the world we see this integrated approach developing. You have just seen President Obama creating a National Ocean Council. We are in very close contact with the United States and other important OECD countries who go down the same route. And this policy follows very close on the heels of science. If I just like to recall at the end, the integrated maritime policy owes a lot to the Galway Declaration of European Marine Scientists. It was really inspired by this, and in a very short time frame, science was translated into policy. And therefore, we are in a listening mood, and your contributions are important. So thank you very much for this work, and stay with it, and let us know where you're going, and we're certainly happy to continue the dialogue. Thank you.